A town in America is being sued for being racist against its non-black residents. 3 years ago, the small town of Evanston proudly became the first local government in the... It's just outside Chicago, by the way. The first local government in the US to start paying slavery reparations to its black citizens. In this case, technically to atone for decades of institutional racism in local housing. But now the council is being sued in a federal court for exhibiting exactly the sort of prejudice it decries. By saying, well, basically, you know, the Hispanics, the white people, they are being discriminated against because they're not getting anything. Amy, I'm going to take a punt at which side of this line you're going to come down on, but go on, thrill me. What do you reckon? This is madness, isn't it? So
this particular town, it's just outside Chicago, isn't it?
Yes, it is. A suburb of Chicago. It looks very nice.
The people that were compensated were people that were adults between 1919 and 1969. Now, they lived under a time of segregation. So policies affecting solely African-American citizens, which included redlining, they weren't allowed mortgages, living under segregation in terms of healthcare, in terms of education, in terms of the job market. They were literally barred from having certain jobs, going to certain healthcare clinics and going to certain schools. So that is a set of very distinct challenges that white people, Hispanic people, Asian people did not face. So that is precisely why they've been compensated in this way. And I think it's about £20,000 it works out to. I would have given him a lot more.
OK.
How much would you give the people in Belfast, Amy? Both white, but some Catholic and some Protestant.
Are you talking about in sense that working class people didn't have the same opportunity?
It wasn't working class, it was Catholics.
That were under
all Catholics, yep.
Well, I would probably compensate them in the same way.
Well, you see, the thing is, history, we learn from history and we move on, and people evolve. And in order to reach a certain goal and a certain level of parity, which is what we all want to do, and through no way of levelling up, and this is a form of levelling up, by the way, it's nothing else, and it's divisive and it's patronising, I think it's absolutely disgusting.
No,
I really, really do.
The policies...
The way the Irish were treated when they came over to England, the way that Catholics have been treated in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, and the way that some Protestants have been treated, and I'm not elevating any terms of terrorism here, because I do not condone that whatsoever. But there were people in modern history who were discriminated against constantly, and I think it's so divisive to keep going back, to keep reiterating, to keep saying, oh, poor you, between 1919 and 1969, you couldn't get a mortgage. Well, that was wrong. No one's saying it was right. But do we need to be compensated for that? Do we need to level up in that way to make parity instead of realising it was a mistake, to get the facts together and then move on cohesively with parity and without disparity, and let's live our lives. Come on, life is too damn short.
But that's all those arguments would be why I would say this is fair, because if there has been a wrong, then surely we need to have retribution for that, and that's exactly what this is. It's a case of a small amount of money to say, here's your opportunity to have an equal playing field, which obviously between these years...
Why? Why?
Because the past affects the status quo today. So if this was a wrong committed on your family...
In this particular area, the legal challenge is saying that this is creating more division. So
yes.
The past is affecting the present, but not in a good way.
But then I think those people must be surely ignorant to what these policies were and who they directly affected, because they only affected the African Americans living in this town. So if there is an opportunity to allow these people to now level up where they were pushed down, why would we put it that way?
But financial compensation surely will not be a compromise or will not be a payment to offset what's happened. But you need to have the discussion and move on. I think it's patronising, and I think it is truly divisive. And it's a form of...
Surely by righting that wrong, and if you have the opportunity to do that...
Why fiscally? Why is it always down to money at the end of the day? Why are people's morals... No, it's not. No, it's not. When you're talking about levelling up, you have to talk about justice, you have to talk about virtues, and you have to talk about people being able to do the things that everyone has. Right to shelter, right to work, right to mortgages, right to education. Because if it's money, it's based on poverty, and the way out of poverty is education.
But that's exactly why they're in poverty, because of this situation.
There's lots of people in the US in poverty. 1 in 4 children in Hounslow local authority in West London are living in poverty.
If we zoom out to look at reparations as a whole, I think that the fact that the slave owners were compensated up until 2010, which meant families of the descendants of slaves were paying to compensate the slave owners until 2010, surely the same principles should be applied to the actual victims.
So what would you say to? I mean, this comes. The money comes from taxes. So the poorer Hispanic and white and Asian communities in this are paying for something that they had nothing to do with.
Where these taxes were drawn from, because that's what makes the story quite interesting. From the legal marijuana shops and properties over 1.5 million in that local town.
It's a very wealthy area.
From that local town.
Yeah, so it's a very wealthy area.
What a brilliant way of levelling up.
Well, it is a very wealthy area. So, I mean, a lot of properties are in that bracket. But there are local people paying taxes, whether they're buying cannabis or selling their houses, who are paying for something they had nothing.
Is that area traditionally Democratic or Republican? That would be quite an interesting optic too.
The argument that they had nothing to do with it stands up this time, because it's between 1919 and 1969. So
well, the people paying their taxes had nothing to do with it. They weren't coming up with it.
They were there. They could have been working. They would have been having the education, having the healthcare. They were there, and now they can right the wrong of their community.
Right.
It's just social justice.